But, when we think about mindfulness, how does it help with stress? Why is being mindful of the current situation so useful?
Great, great questions. I'll start with that second one. So why is it useful? On a big picture, kind of on a fundamental picture, when we think about what is the opposite of mindfulness, we could say is to be absent-minded, is to not is to not be fully there in our experience. And when we're not fully there, in some ways, we're not fully alive. And we hear this, oftentimes many of us probably have this experience of knowing someone who, towards the end of their life, maybe had regret of not being more present for their family, this desire for just being in the really in the midst of our experience in a sense of fully being present. So in some ways, mindfulness is a natural quality and so natural that we overlook it as actually this quality of mind that allows us to really be there for our life. That if we don't know what's happening, if we're just being absent-minded, let's say we have kids that we're attending to, or a partner, or friend, or family, and we're caught either in some stories in our mind, or maybe we have some judgments that we're annoyed and angry about with them, and we don't see that. Now we're just caught in this distortion or absent-mindedness, and we're not fully present. So in some ways, mindfulness allows us to be fully alive, right? And we each matter. And this is a really amazing thing that JumpCloud would offer, something like this that says, you matter, your well-being matters, your mental health matters. That's extraordinary. That's not something companies would have done, some years back. And this is now really a new kind of period, it feels like, in time where we're really recognizing what is it that we're doing with our life, and are our jobs something that are just kind of separate from our life that we just kind of dive into and get overwhelmed, or is it something that actually we can invest in each other, right, as a community, so that our well-being, what are the tools that help us to be able to do our work, right, in a way that feels really deeply meaningful. So mindfulness, in terms of utility, it also offers us a broader perspective. When we learn to pause and take a moment, instead of being funneled into the sort of narrow, let's say, tunnel vision of something that we get caught up into, mindfulness allows us to actually open up for a moment. What else is there? We pause. So it offers us this enlarged perspective, right? Not just the particular train, right, energy that we've fallen into. Mindfulness allows us to be, again, more balanced. We might remember, oh, wow, there is a body down below my head, right, that I hadn't actually felt. And so even as I say that, just feeling your body, and there may be a sense of being more inhabiting your full experience. And the last thing in terms of the why is it useful, I just want to speak to is this quality of mindfulness allows us to see the nature of experience clearly. And again, most of us would assume we are seeing clearly. The thing is, because the mind is usually not seen, if we, let's say, are feeling frustrated or again stressful or anxious, judgmental, our inner critic, self-worth, right, is arising, and we're looking through those lenses, we see the world that the mind is now distorting, right? We only see the distortion. We don't actually see clearly. And our experience is put together very quickly. What we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we think about is all put together so quickly as a unified experience. And we don't recognize, for example, again, right now, just taking a moment, that the experience of the body, the sensations you might experience in the body of sitting, is distinct from the experience of hearing, right? And if you're able to hear this, if we say the working ear door is functioning, then you have this experience of hearing. And then there's the experience of seeing. And the more that we're able to do that, we have insights about how what it is that we experience affects us. We're not just kind of swept into the current of things. We're able to be really clear as much as we can be about, let's say, some lens that we're wearing at that moment, some kind of glasses we put on that's, we say, rose tinted or not. It's like, put on the glasses. Oh, there, I can see more clearly. Right, so this is like mindfulness. You put on and you can see, look, I can see clearly, but we assume we are. And we assume that let's say the depressive energy that we might feel, or the overwhelming, that's reality. But we need to be able to then do a step back, and then we can start to be aware, oh, this is what depression or anxiety feels like, if that makes sense. So, and then you asked the question about stress, particularly. How does it help with stress? I think the first thing to notice in some ways that what does the experience feel like when we're stressful, right? The body feels tight. There's a bodily component. Maybe the shoulders are hunching up. The mind probably gets locked into an urgency, right? Sort of like we're toppling forward. Taking a pause feels like the last thing that we can do when we're in this sort of forward, almost like falling, tumbling forward. So unless we begin to recognize that there is this bodily component and really that there is this mind, it's difficult to start to relate to this quality of stress in a skillful way. So it's like when a doctor, right, the path that I have been on, like trying to diagnose something, you first have to see, well, what is the ailment? Oh, there is this thing that you're suffering from. What is the cause, right? And what is the way out? What is the path? What is the cure? So when we see that stress oftentimes is the mind in a reactive state, right? Resisting something, maybe in a thought loop of overwhelm, we can start to actually take a moment. Our mindfulness can start to feel the energy of the stress in the body, right? Maybe start to sense the thoughts that are running. We're not feeding them. We're becoming mindful that the thinking mind is racing. And what one meditation teacher, famous, well-known teacher, John Kabat-Zinn, describes this as is we often think that stress somehow is wrong, something's gone wrong, when in fact it's more helpful to see stress as a natural process, like the waves. And so he would say, you can't stop the waves from coming, right, in the ocean. If you try and stop the waves, impossible, right, on the shore, but you can learn to surf. Mindfulness practice is really, in a way, learning to surf life. And what does it mean to be surfing when there's stress and anxiety in the body? First is to say it's natural. We all experience it. It's the mind getting kind of entangled and caught and feeling racy. So first giving the mind and body full permission, we're all in this together, right? It helps to recognize we're not alone. I too feel stress, right? I too can feel overwhelmed and anxious, right? And then as we start to see it as being natural, then we can start to take some steps back, right? And become mindful of it. We might pause. We might take a deeper breath. So again, right now, if you want, just taking a deeper breath and noticing what that feels like, right? We're breathing again, but so easy we're kind of not in our direct experience. And there's an analogy of what mindfulness feels like in terms of once we start to become more mindful, there's a difference between being swept in the river of experience, which is where we're in the river of experiences, versus what does it feel like when we're comfortable sitting on the banks, right, or the shore alongside some river that's flowing, and we're able to observe what's going on. So it's very different being swept away in something versus observing it, right? And that's how, over time, we can actually start to see how we can be with stressful moments. So I hope that touches on some things, probably raises more questions than it answers, but that's how we learn. And
I think in the best possible way, though. I think that, we start to think about, everything can feel so overwhelming. And to be able to start small
right.
with something as simple as your own breathing, and to be able
Yes,
to take yourself out of a difficult moment just by taking in a deep breath can, help you reset everything that you're talking about, and reset you as outside of being swept away, but on the shores watching the river.
yes, yes.
Please subscribe and check out more content from us.